We're going to kick things off with the most recent news in the Toronto Maple Leafs world. The Leafs beating the Flyers 3-0. And it was a pretty good game all around. The Leafs finally started on time, I think. Well, I wouldn't say terrific, but it was a much better than that LA game. I know Sheldon Keefe, following the loss to the Kings, he was preaching starting on time. We just let everyone run into the offensive zone through the neutral zone into their offensive zone, and just so many breakaways. And obviously it was evident with the goals that were going in against the Kings at home. This game was totally different. I think they woke up a little bit. They got a penalty to start the game, a power play, and then they surrendered 2 penalties as well. And Semyonov making his NHL debut, I believe he's 27 years old. So what a journey it is for him getting his crack in the lineup.
Baby Ilya.
Exactly. It took Tavares he was a healthy scratch to start the game, or before we even got into it. I guess it was, I think, an injury thing. That's what I was hearing. So hopefully everything's good on his front. But again, Semyonov stepped off, and I thought he played a terrific game for the most part. He was going into the corners really hard. He was winning forechecks, winning puck battles, everything you want out of the fourth line player, especially in his debut. No points on the score sheet, but I don't think that matters when you're looking at this guy. I'll turn it over to you, Jared. What were your thoughts on the kid? He's making his first start in the NHL at the age of 27. Interesting story, like I mentioned. What did you make of his play?
I liked him. I was excited when I saw he cracked the lineup. Obviously, it wasn't on the best terms because it was meaning that our captain, John Tavares, is out. And obviously, I saw what caused him to be out. It was a weird play in the LA game. I believe he took like a Charlie horse to the leg. Just it hurt him in that, and he obviously wasn't good to play tonight. So that wasn't great. But I mean, it was great to see Semyonov, I believe that's how you pronounce his name, stepping into the lineup. Probably butchered his name. He wasn't crazy noticeable. I mean, he definitely didn't do anything bad. He was fine. I mean, I didn't complain. I don't think he did anything to warrant him being out of the lineup next game. He was good. Did exactly what you expect a fourth liner to do. He threw some hits. He played a hard game. He was pretty good. I mean, didn't do anything crazy. Obviously didn't get on the board offensively. But no, he had a good game. I definitely didn't have any complaints with him, and it was exciting to see him step into the lineup. And I'm excited to see what comes next for him.
And I think that's just a terrific thing for him to say. Like, nothing bad happened during his playing in this game. I don't know, it was just an even game from him. It's better to see this kind of stuff, just a regular, it looks like a regular Joe out there, than seeing him just turning the puck over left, right, and center. And a pairing that was turning over the puck very frequently in that first period was that Muzzin Hall pairing. It's just not working. I don't know. We talked about it briefly in the last episode about Justin Holl's future. He's had a really tough start to the season, and I think it's just continuously coming and piling on him. And I think it's affecting Jake Muzzin's play as well. I mean, you recorded a point in the game, which was, I guess, nice to see on the offensive side, but the defensive side where it matters, these guys have just not been there. Evan, I know you were touching upon it last week. Can you expand upon it a little more? Because now we've seen a little bit more of the cards dealt with Holl and Muzzin, and it's just been nothing successful so far.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I think this was a game and a time in the season where you need to get Justin Holl back on the ice and kind of just reassess his value. You know, like, he took a little break for a few games. They allowed Dermott and Muzzin to play together. And I'm just saying, like, I don't want to sound like a hater, but I feel like Justin Holl needs to be in a different jersey sooner than later, because right now it's not working with the Leafs, and I don't think it's worth sacrificing Travis Dermott, who I think is exponentially better and more valuable to the Leafs than Justin Holl is. And I think you want Liljegren there. You drafted him high for a reason. It's not because you were hoping and praying he would turn out to be one of your top 6. You knew he was going to be down the road in your top 6. So, like, you got to get rid of Justin Holl, and sending him down to the minors doesn't do anything for him. It doesn't do anything for the team, and it doesn't do anything for him personally too. Like, it just degrades his confidence. And for what it's worth, I would trade him to get draft picks, because right now the one thing the Maple Leafs need are assets, and you don't need another player right now. Like, the team is complete. Like, if you get another player, where are you putting him in the lineup? And if you are going to get a player, it can't be a guy that you're going to send down to the Marlies. Like, you could have just done that with Justin Holl. So right now, I think if they can get a 3rd round pick, maybe even a 2nd, I don't think they would. I think the highest value they could get is a 3rd. I would take that deal right now, because you need draft capital when you're in a salary constraint.
It's an interesting take. I mean, I've never, at least over the last couple of weeks, just haven't really thought. And I know draft picks just fly by the brain because we don't really ever care about them. And starter looks like Kyle Dubas doesn't as well for the way he's been shipping them off to any other team. But it makes totally so much sense in this situation the Toronto Maple Leafs are in. I think Justin Holl, what he's brought is just so much. It's not really a bad thing on him. It's just the reality of the situation. He's just sort of made the players around him a little bit worse. I mean, defensively, I think is a fair point. It's just what a terrific season he had last season. It was a breakout year for him. So much success. He was a good locker room guy. Everyone loved him. I think we saw it abundantly in the documentary that came out to start the year. But on the ice this season, it just hasn't been clicking for him. And I think a new destination is possible. I think it's more than possible. I've seen a lot of insiders talking about getting him shipped off to other places just as early as the trade deadline, even way before that, as early as Christmas. I heard some people talking about as well. And yeah, chime in.
I think a team like I'm gonna sound like biased here. I think a team that needs him is LA because they're missing a defenseman. Like they had Matt Green and Alec Martinez for so many years. Obviously, they didn't get Eichel, but they have the draft capital for it. I think if they could trade a third round pick and like a measly prospect, or even just trade for a third round pick, like they're a team that needs that big guy. And when they were successful is because they had big defensemen who were willing to step up.
Yeah, and I mean, we're going to talk about LA a little bit later in the show. They've been red hot. I believe winners of 6 straight, could be 7.
They just came
6.
off Montreal overtime win.
So 6 straight for them. They'll be getting a bit of love in this episode, but I don't know. I think it's Hall's turn to get a bit of the beating stick on this show. And I want to bring it into, I was going to touch upon the Maple Leafs D a little bit later after we recap this game, but I think it's a perfect opportunity to dissect them now. So many guys involved. I don't think we expected this heading into the season that it was going to be this sort of happy situation. We got a bunch of guys that could fill in that void if Justin Holl were to go to another destination. What do you guys make of Liljegren's play? Sandin's been terrific. I don't know, like, is Liljegren's play been so consistent that it keeps him in the lineup and it keeps him a step ahead of Justin Holl? He's going to be taking over that role if he goes somewhere. I just want to pick your brain because he's getting that lower end of the table, that bottom 6, the third pairing I'm trying to say here. He's been playing much of that with Sandin, which I believe is a fair customization because they've played full minor league time alongside each other, and I don't think they're good enough to play in the top 4. But I don't know, what do you make of their play? Maybe differentiate between Liljegren and Sandin. I'll start with you, Adama. What did you make of the kids? They've been all right, and it's been a couple weeks now where we've seen some consistent play from them.
I want to talk about Timothy Liljegren first because he was a guy tonight that I noticed a lot more. Like, I'm going to say this was probably his best game of the season. And we keep saying that. Like, I feel like every night, this is Timothy Liljegren's best game. And he keeps getting better. Like, the stretch passes that this guy can make are unreal. Like, he looks like one of the best puck-moving defensemen on this team. And he's still pretty sound defensively. He had one pretty bad turnover that the breakaway one, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. But I'd also like to say Semyonov put him in a pretty shitty situation there, kind of flat-footed on his back end. He didn't have much to do. But, I've loved Timothy Liljegren this season, and there's no reason that I'll throw it back to Travis Dermott a little bit because I did want to make a little comment on that. There's no reason that Justin Holl should be in the lineup over Travis Dermott or Timothy Liljegren. Dermott is younger, right? No, there's no changing that. Dermott is the only thing that Dermott isn't with Justin Holl is right-handed. I think Dermott is better defensively. I think he's better in transition. I think he's one of the best. I think he is the best transition defenseman the Leafs have. I'm not saying odd man rush defenseman, but like 5-on-5 in terms of his gap control is among the best in the NHL. That's where he makes bread and butter using those edges. I think he's just an overall better player than Justin Holl, and he's cheaper. And he has term, which Justin Holl doesn't have. So I'm not saying we should move on from Justin Holl just yet because you don't sell a guy when he's at his lowest value, which right now I think would be like a 4th, 5th round pick just because he's making that $2 million. So I forgot where I was going with this, but if we're going to touch on Rasmus Sandin, he's also been really good. But we knew this. We knew Rasmus Sandin, or should I say Carl Sandin? Did anyone see that?
Yes.
That's his legal name, Carl Sandin. Carl Eric Sandin. It was a nice little athletic article. He's been really good. The second power play has been great, and part of that success is because of him. I love the way he's able to walk the line, and he's a shooting threat, unlike Riley, who is also a great power play quarterback. That's a discussion for another time. Even at 5-on-5, Sandin and Liljegren, they just look like they complement each other, even though their skill sets are really similar. So I've been a fan of the kids.
And I think we're seeing a little bit more in Liljegren's game what we saw in Sandin last season. Now, Sandin, he came into the league, or not, he didn't come into the league last season, but he got a more prominent role with his team in that condensed schedule. And he really played terrific. It was a reason why he stood in the lineup for such a long time. And he became a vital piece, not even just in the regular season, but even in the playoffs as well. So I think this is something that Liljegren is starting to get into a bit more. I think he's ready to take the next step. And we've given this guy some time to develop. He's been in the minors for quite a while. We've let him play his course. We didn't force anything on him. We gave him some chances in the preseason, some little sprouts within the regular season, spread him in there a little bit. We didn't see anything substantial yet. Now we're seeing the substantial play from Timothy Liljegren. And I think it's just a terrific thing and coming at the right time for the Maple Leafs when a guy like Justin Holl is scuffling a little bit. And just on Justin Holl, before I turn it over to you, Jared, I think that the Leafs are forcing him a little bit. They're trying to make him like, we really want you to succeed. Keep playing, keep putting him in the situation. And I know he can handle it, but if the guys are better guys behind him are playing much more effectively, let them play more minutes than Justin Holl, or even more, just let Justin Holl sit on the bench. Let him sit in the press box, whatever it takes. Like you mentioned, Adamo, Dermott should not be sidelined just to get Justin Holl minutes in. We've seen Justin Holl get minutes in, and right now, him and his minutes aren't going well with this team. And the guys who are on the bench and who aren't playing as much, like Sandin, Liljegren, and Dermott, who was a healthy scratch tonight, those guys aren't going to get any love when you're playing Justin Holl so much. So I think I just want to make that point on Justin Holl. I don't know. I thought I found that pretty evident in his game over the last couple of weeks. Jared, what did you make of Justin Holl's game and the two kids filling in that third pairing, and Rasmus Sandin and Timothy Liljegren?
Well, first of all, I'm going to start off on Justin Holl. The issue is he makes $2 million, and if you're benching a $2 million player, it's an absolute waste. So at that point, you may need to start looking into a trade. The issue with the trade that scares me is, as much as, yes, he hasn't been good enough, and even though I liked him last year, clearly this year something is wrong because it just hasn't been working out. But if we do trade him and someone goes down with an injury, that just creates a whole nother slew of issue. So I'm definitely hesitant, especially like Adamo pointed out, at his lowest value. I don't think now is the time to trade him, but you need to do something to get this player going, because right now it is just not working out. But two players that are absolutely working out, they're clicking, they're flying on all cylinders. Rasmus Sandin, Timothy Liljegren. The young kids are absolutely clicking right now. Obviously on the Marlies in the minors, they played together, and they clearly have that chemistry, because, I mean, they're playing right now like, and I said this when they first started playing this season, they're playing like confident defensemen right now. They're making some high IQ, very smart plays. They're moving the puck forward, and they're just playing really well together. They look like confident players, and that is what we need out of our young kids that, I mean, we drafted in the first round with Sandin in 2018, with Liljegren in 2017. And when you look at Liljegren, even though it hasn't worked, there's a few years in a row where we sort of expected him to be this great defenseman, and it hadn't quite been working out. This year, I don't know, something just snapped in him, and all of a sudden he's like, there was all that hype around me in 2017. It's about time I start living up to that. And he's just absolutely flying out there, and I'm loving what I see from those two young kids.
And the only thing that I'm going to point out on them, and this is just natural in a defenseman's finding his way in the National Hockey League, it's just the growing pains. And you're going to see it throughout every youngster in the National Hockey League. This is nothing against Timothy Liljegren, or even sometimes Rasmus Sandin. You see them, like you mentioned, Damo, before his turnover at the blue line in this game against Philly. There's been a lot of turnovers from him, but nothing so bad to keep him out of the lineup. He's been terrific. And I just wanted to mention that as well. It's obviously very evident in a defenseman who's just making their way into the league. And I think Liljegren and Sandin, they show these signs, but so many more signs of them coming out of their shell and getting a little bit more gelled with this team and more into a prominent role with this squad. And Jared, I just want to ask you one more thing, because you mentioned up this point about Justin Holl, and this is all I'm going to say about Justin Holl for the rest of the show, hopefully. So you mentioned that like something has to happen for him to get clicking. What would you suggest that is? Because we saw him getting a healthy scratch a couple of games ago, a kick in the pants, I guess it looked like from the outside looking in, and I guess that didn't work at all. So what is Keefe and even Dubas left to do now?
At this point, you have to just start getting a little bit creative. It's still November, and Keefe has to start trying to match him with other people, because clearly that pairing of Jake Muzzin and Justin Holl is not working out right now. And obviously, why would you disrupt lines that are clicking? So I'm not going to say completely change everything, but I mean, you have to try to find something to get Justin Holl going, whether it's he just needs to go into the GM's office and have a little talk with Dubas, or you have to do something. You have to talk to this guy. You have to try to find a way to get him back to the player he was last year. Because when he's playing confident, we've seen that he could be a successful defenseman on this team. He had a great year last year. He has the tools there. He has what it takes. But I mean, I don't know if something this year isn't there. I don't know what it is, but something this year isn't working out for him, and he needs to try to do something to motivate him because he obviously has what it takes, but this year he just hasn't been showing that. And again, whether it's maybe splitting him up with Jake Muzzin, moving up him with someone else, you have to do something, or maybe it is you have to bench him at a point. But I don't know. It's a tough situation because why do you want to bench a $2 million defenseman? But at the same time, he's not playing right now, and there are 3 players in Rasmus Sandin, Timothy Liljegren, and Travis Dermott who are more deserving of spots in the lineup right now. So it's a really tough situation. It'll be very interesting to see what Sheldon Keefe and Kyle Dubas do about that moving forward, because as of right now, he just straight up hasn't been good enough.
Yeah, now if I'm Sheldon Keefe, Kyle Dubas, whoever's making these calls here, I'm letting the big dogs eat. And the big dogs are the guys that are producing at this moment. Sandin, Liljegren fall into that place. And I want to talk about these big dogs who have been producing, because it's just we've been seeing so much of it over this last couple of games. And finally it came to a close. We saw the 16 consecutive goal streak come to an end from that core 4. Andre Casa was snapping it with his second of the year. I believe it came in the 3rd period of this game against the Flyers. And Nylander scored a pair of goals in this game to get the other goals and help with the win. And Nylander, he's been, like he has all year, solid offensively and in his defensive game as well. But it's just been terrific of what we've seen from this group. I think this is all we're going to talk about for the recap with the Flyers. I want to get more into this core 4 heating up. And we've seen so much talk about these group of players over this whole season. At the start, it was these guys aren't producing. Something got to change. Trade Marner, trade this guy, that guy. It was a full epiphany of what we've seen from this Toronto media. Now it's changed. Now it's all these core 4 players are producing, but what about the depth? There's nothing there. Like, what is this team? There's not enough balance. They're too top heavy. Leaf fans, if I'm going to tell you anything, and if you're listening, pick a side. I think we've all done it pretty well. It's just annoying what we have to listen to on a daily basis when it's these guys are producing. Finally, let us enjoy what we're seeing, because we haven't been able to see too much of enjoyment over this last couple of seasons with this Leafs team, particularly the beginning of the year where the top 4 were not producing. Now we're seeing it. So let's enjoy it. And let's worry about the depth when it's not producing, when we absolutely need it. And the core 4 are not producing, because it looks like the role sort of flip-flopped. Would you not agree, Evan?
Yeah, just to respond to that though, if this does continue to become a thing where it's just Matthews, Nylander, Marner producing, Jared, I know you're making that face, but what is this? I'm just saying, I'm telling you right now, when you're saying come playoff time, what team does this remind you of? And I'll give you a hint. They got swept in 4 games by Winnipeg. Okay, it's reminding me a little bit of the Edmonton Oilers, where you have guys like Leon Draisaitl, you have guys like Connor McDavid, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, Tyson Barrie, Darnell Nurse. And we saw a lot of last year, granted a short 56-game season, but you always saw those 5 names on the score sheet. And if those 5 names weren't on the score sheet, Edmonton had a tough time winning. And this is the thing that now I'm noticing with the Leafs, because obviously once you get to the playoffs, it's a lot easier to lock down guys because you're playing them on a consistent basis. If the depth doesn't get started soon, this could be something like Edmonton down. Like, they have McDavid and Draisaitl, who are easily, if not the 2 best players in the NHL, and they still got swept against the Winnipeg Jets, who are a more complete team, where each line is able to produce on the offensive end. And it's also in that playoff series, they were only scoring 2 to 3 goals a night, where you had McDavid, who had 100 points in a 56-game season, and Leon Draisaitl, who shortly followed. Like, they should have easily been able to at least come away with 1 win. And I'm just worried that if something happens like how we've always seen with Marner, who shuts down come playoff time, and Matthews, who isn't the same goal scorer, I'm afraid of them not getting out of the first round again, because the bottom, like Kasha, I like love he scored a goal, like whatever, but they hadn't scored before. And I'm just noticing that issue, and I don't want deja vu just with a different team.
I hear you. And I mean, it's a fair point. I think the Leafs have been both in the offseason, last season, because they're so similar in their makeup. So many extremely talented pieces up front in that top six. And it just always is either really hot or it's not. Right now, we're seeing with the Edmonton Oilers a happy case where all their guys are producing, the depth's there, and the offense, the core four is there. Like there's a full balance. And I 100% agree. You need a balance when you're heading into the playoffs, because a top heavy team, like we saw with the Edmonton Oilers last year, and so many teams in the past, it's not going to get that far. But I think it's just right now what we're looking at. And I think this is what I'm trying to say. And I think Jared might agree with me here. It's just that it's a short sample size right now. Like the top four is producing over the last week. The week before that, it was the depth that was producing. I think if this was a common theme all season, which we saw through the last 13, 14 games that they've played, and it's just the top four producing, then it gets a little, okay, what's wrong with the depth? We need to bring in maybe some guys that are going to spark something with this lower group, or something has to change. But I think it's just a streaky thing right now. I think the depth is there. It's just the big dogs are eating right now. And I think we just got to let them go at it. You want to comment a little bit more on it?
Just one last thing, and then I'll cut it to Jared and Adama. What I'm saying is, like, if this case becomes the theme where it's 1 week that the depth is producing guys like Kasha, Bunting, Kerfoot, and then the next week is the core four, Nylander, Matthews, Marner, and Tavares, that's not going to work come playoff time. So, and honestly, like for Leaf fans, you shouldn't really give a crap about the regular season, because everyone knows the Leafs are good, but the playoffs are a different animal. And we've seen that these big dogs are getting thrown in the pound. Like they're not producing come playoff time. So I really don't care that these core four, whatever you want to call it, are scoring 16. Like, congratulations. Can you do that for me in April?
100%. I agree. And I think it's just, I think we're just trying to deal with the cards that we're dealt right now. I think we're just focusing on the regular season. That's why we're sort of analyzing this way. But I think your point is extremely fair. I think that's all we're trying to say. It's just that in the playoffs, these guys never show up. And I think that's exactly what you're alliterating to, because this is what we need. We need this sort of performance that we saw tonight, the game before, the game against Boston. We need all those performances to stack up and see it in the playoffs. The regular season doesn't matter. No, it doesn't matter, because we're waiting for those playoff results, as we've talked so much about in this show. But again, you need to see these guys producing throughout the season to get a sort of general picture of what we're going to see come the postseason. So I don't know. I want to hear your thoughts as well, Jared. Turn it over to you, Adamo, as well. Jared, what did you think of the core four, the talk about them and about this depth? I think we called it the what was it again? I just forgot.
The eight mates.
The eight mates. Jeez, I gotta write this thing down. The core four and the eight mates. What do you make between them? And is it just too top heavy for the Leafs right now? Because it's looking that way. That's 16 goal streak was snapped by Casa. So I don't know. I think it's just a streaky thing. Do you agree with me on this, or is it
Yeah, I agree. And what I keep looking at is, what was the conversation piece when the Leafs are on their 4-game losing streak? Was, the top four can't contribute. Could people relax a little bit? I don't know. I hate the flip-flop of the narrative of, at first, the core four can't score, we're relying purely on our depth. Now all of a sudden our depth pieces start scoring. The team's screwed because the depth pieces aren't going now. I think people need to just take a deep breath. Right now our top four is clicking. What's happening? We won 5 games in a row. We lost our game against LA, and now we've won 6 of our last 7 games. I mean, our team is doing well, and it's showing that we're living and dying on our core four. When our core four are going, our team's doing great. And when our core four aren't going, you saw how that went when we were down. We lost 4 games in a row. I do agree with the point Evan brought up, though, where I have an absolute issue with the way that the Edmonton Oilers are built, because their whole game plan is Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl. When they aren't going, the team's absolutely screwed. And they're a team that, even when I'm making my bracket challenge, my playoff predictions, I never am that high on the Edmonton Oilers, because I completely don't like the way their team is built. I don't think the Leafs are as top heavy as the Oilers are. I don't mind our depth, and I think that we have depth pieces there. Jason Spezza is a great player. Wayne Simmons is a great player. Andre Cash is good. Nick Ritchie, today he looks great. And he has the pieces there that he should be able to pick it up and be an impactful depth player. we have Kerfoot, all these other players. So I don't think we're as top heavy as the Oilers. And I do think that the way our team is built should be able to contribute and work come playoff time. I mean, it's a great thing. Why are we complaining that our top four are working? And yes, obviously there's an issue that 16 straight goals were scored by our core four players. But I mean, let our core four get confident, and eventually our depth will start picking it up like they were at the beginning of the season when they were the only ones going. So I just think I hate the way the media and the narrative flips the story, and I hate the way where it's like in a week's time, oh, this is the issue on our team. Now all of a sudden you completely flip that on its head. It's like, no, it's still early in the season. Our team is doing well now. I mean, we're not at the issue where we're losing 4 in a row anymore. Our team is flying at the moment because our core four are contributing. Sure, the depth need to pick it up a little bit, but I mean, I'm not panicking yet because I mean, it's a good thing. Why are we complaining about the guys we pay to score?
Exactly.
Like, I don't know. That's my kind of mindset on that. I do agree with Evan's point about an issue with the Edmonton Oilers, but I just don't see how that directly translates into the Leafs because I think we're a differently built team. And I actually do think we have depth pieces there. It's just a matter if they want to start contributing or not.
Can I ask one question though?
Go ahead.
What round was Edmonton eliminated in? And what round were the Leafs eliminated in? I rest my case.
I'm not.
Go to the conference finals one year though. To be fair,
Who?
or at least
they went to the second round.
They went to the second round.
In game 7.
Okay, it happened. Meaning it can happen. If that's like what we're.
I'm not saying like press the panic button, but like, of course you want the top to get hot. But if you have a constant, like, I'm not saying it's a cause for concern, like shut the whole system down. But like, if you're having these issues where 1 week it's the depth and then another week it's like a balanced team runs where each game different guys are scoring. And like if you want to look back at Winnipeg last year, like they had games where it was Kyle Connor, Matthew Perreault, Nikolai Ehlers, Andrew Kopp, Pierre-Luc Dubois, like they always had a consistent balance.
Give it one more week.
Okay.
1 more week and we will see how it works. No, because this, like, if it's 1 week, it's the depth. 1 week is the core four. What if the next week after that, it's both of them combined? Like, we're going to just have to see, because you could be absolutely right. And it could be continuously flip-flopping. And that is obviously a problem that the Leafs are going to have to nip in the bud as soon as possible. Right now, it's just, in my opinion, at least, I don't know. It's just a streaky thing. Like, these guys were cold throughout the entire stretch of the opening season. Now they're hot. Now they're firing on all cylinders. So obviously this is expected when the group of players are hot at once. You're going to see all these guys producing. So I think it's fair to say, like, no arguments at all about the playoffs. These guys need to produce. There's got to be a balance. It's no question there. It's just right now, I think it's the big four. They're hot. Let them run, and the depth is going to pick it up. Hopefully, pick it up in the next week. If it's the depth picking it up and the core four go silent, then we got a problem on our hands. I think that's something that's going to be more than talked about with this Maple Leafs team. And Adamo, I know you didn't get to talk much about it. Do you want to make any comments about it as well?
I know you guys pretty much hit on everything, but I will say, I still haven't switched that we need to get results because we're still not a playoff lock. Like, I get we won 6 of 7. We also lost like 5 of 7 to start the season. So I'll take results however they come. We're talking, playoffs. I'll say it again. We need to get there first. Look at Florida. Florida's the team actually I was least scared of, and now look at them. Tampa's still Tampa, and Boston, although they've looked like shite, they aren't. So let's pump the brakes on the playoff talk. And like, the Leafs are low-key been carried by Jack Campbell. We're like not going to talk about that defensively. They've been a mess, and Jack Campbell's been our MVP beside King William. So yeah, let's maybe pump the brakes on the playoff talk and let's just focus on getting these results. And if it's the big four scoring, superstars score goals and they win. Tampa, Nikita Kucherov, Braden Point, Steven Stamkos, and Anthony Cirelli go quiet for the Tampa Bay Lightning, they don't win. This is how teams work. If Ovechkin doesn't score, neither do the Caps. Like, it's just how teams work.
The Leafs are just another team. Do you want to add something, Jared? Or
yeah, so I just wanted to add on that. I mean, of course, if you are talking about the playoffs completely, I'm not going back on what you're saying because I'm going to add on it, but yeah. I'm going to talk about the playoffs for 1 second. Of course, the team that ends up winning the cup is going to be that team where the core, not the core. The top four lines are all contributing. Of course, that's a thing, and of course, that's the dream, and that's what we want to happen in Toronto. But right now, in order to win games, it's showing that our core four needs to be contributing. And you look at those examples from around the league that Adamo was bringing up, and even look in all sports. I mean, if Tom Brady isn't lighting it up and throwing those great throws, I mean, the Buccaneers, I was about to say the Patriots, the Buccaneers aren't winning their Super Bowl. I mean, if Michael Jordan isn't playing like Michael Jordan, the Bulls don't win all those championships. Like, at a point, the guys you pay the money, your big name guys, need to play like big name guys. And that was an issue we were complaining about. Why now, when Marner, Matthews, and Nylander are starting to look like those guys we expect them to be, why are we starting to complain? So I think that's just my issue with the way the media is reporting the story, the way people on Twitter are like reporting and talking about the story. Why are we complaining that our superstars are playing like superstars? I think that's just absolutely ridiculous. I agree. We absolutely need the depth to start figuring it out, need the depth to start contributing and being good players. But why are we complaining now that we're getting the wins and our superstar players are playing like we expect them and pay them to do?
C'est la vie. Let's live in the moment. I mean, it's just all we got to work with right now. Let's play the cards we're dealt. And I think we'll leave it at that. I mean, we've spoken, I think, just about everything we could say about this top heavy offense and its comparison to the depth of this team. So I think we're going to move a bit off of that and just go quickly to a guy who hasn't been able to live in so many moments with the Toronto Maple Leafs. That is Peter Mrazek. It's the experiment hasn't looked too well with the Mrazek, with him in goal. He has only played one complete game, which was a 5-4 win over the Detroit Red Wings. So allowing 4 goals in that start. So if you haven't heard, obviously, I'm sure you guys are all aware of it. Just for the fans, if they haven't heard, he was recently reacquainted with himself with the IR after retweaking his groin. So he's there for about a month, 4 weeks, could be possibly 5, who knows. I'm actually going to bring this up. It's a little off topic, but Evan, I interviewed you for my Vox Pop a while back for
I was just going to say.
the line that I heard so many times, at least 100 times when I was editing this thing, durability is going to be a concern this year, quoted by Evan Davis. And look where we are now. This guy cannot stay healthy. Evan, you're already, the king never misses, I guess, is what they say. And it's just, is this a definite dang it for Kyle Dubas? Because it's just week after week, it's looking ridiculous. Like, he's not able to play at all, not able to put any momentum together. And it's just adding more salt to the wound when Freddie is tearing it up and putting up. If you told me this at the regular, before we started, he'd be putting up Vezina numbers, I'd call you crazy, but here we are. And that's what he's putting up. So, I mean, I don't know. What do you guys make of the experiment with Peter Mrazek? Is it a failure yet? Are we ready to write him off? Because it's not like Nick Ritchie where he's not producing. He's not even playing. Like, I'll start with you, Evan, because you made the call so far back.
I mean, like, I hate to call someone's injury, but I when you had like just brought up this topic, I was like, I remember saying something about like the contract is a steal if he can stay healthy. Yeah. That's what I thought at the beginning, like when, I'm sorry, not at the beginning, when he signed the contract. And I was obviously in LA and I was talking to my dad and I was like, this is an interesting move because obviously Peter Mrazek did not play a lot last year either. And I thought, and I was saying to my dad too, I was like, 3 years seems a little too long of a commitment, especially for a guy like Peter Mrazek. And it's not a question of his talent. Like I said, durability is going to be an issue. And I struck gold on that, unfortunately. Like, I knew that this was going to be a problem. And now that he eats up 3.25, something like that, like 3.25 million, maybe like 3 and some change of your, yeah. So a little over $3 million a year for 3 years. And he's only played 1 game and he got injured in that game in Ottawa too. He only played 2 periods of the 3. Jack Campbell had to come in for that 3rd period, unfortunately. And look, I was never a fan of the move. I thought it was a little bit of a risky move by Kyle Dubas. Like, unfortunately, the market for goalies it wasn't good enough for the Leafs. Like, you obviously weren't getting Philip Grubauer. Freddie Anderson wanted out. It seemed like like a bridge had maybe been burned when Jack Campbell started getting a lot of the reps, but yet you're paying Freddie Anderson number one goalie dollars. And unfortunately, they had to take the risk on signing Peter Mrazek. And right now they're paying him to stay at home, and it's unfortunate. So, and I'm telling, like, and I just wanted to actually, this is going back to Adamo's comment about Jack Campbell being the MVP. I think that's perfect for the Leafs that he is your MVP right now, because if you want to go back in ancient time to 2012 when the Kings won the Stanley Cup, the Conn Smythe winner was Jonathan Quick, and pardon my French, he was unfucking believable. He had 4 shutouts. A fourth of his wins were shutouts, and the amount of games that he saved for the Kings. Like there were so many games they had zero business winning. It was Jonathan Quick who played like unreal. And if Jack Campbell can do that for the Leafs, then the Leafs can go past the first round. If he can play as the MVP, that's the only way they get past the first round.
And I mean, I mean, Jack Campbell was terrific last year. The only slip up was Game 7 against the Montreal Canadiens, where a couple goals scored on him he should have had, and that was the only reason why. The only shaky start to get, because otherwise in that series, he was the reason the Leafs were not just in it, but seeing some success. And Carey Price he got out goalied. That's one thing that we cannot see come this postseason. And I really don't want to talk postseason because we're in November. So much season to play. But again, he got out goalied in that series. It's going to be interesting to see if he does it this year. But so far this season, he hasn't been out goalied so many times, because look at his numbers. Adamo, you mentioned it. Evan, you just touched upon it. He's been the MVP. But I want to bring the conversation back to Peter Mrazek, because it's an interesting thing. It's hard to analyze a guy fully and write him off when we haven't even seen the guy play more than 3-4 games. He's not a bad goalie. He's not even there. He's not even in the conversation. I don't know. Adamo, what do you make of Peter Mrazek's situation that he's in? What does it mean for the Leafs? And is it a failure for Dubas yet? Are you ready to write it off and sail that ship? Or are we just got to give it more time? Because we kind of knew heading in that this was in the fine print, that this could possibly happen with the Leafs, and it's coming full circle right now.
Yeah, I'm normally the Mr. Overreacty man, but in this situation, I'm going to say chill. Again, pump the brakes. It's quite literally been 2 games. It's been 13. I get it. He hasn't been healthy. But should we write Ilya Mikheyev off too? The guy lacerated his wrist, another injury, and then he broke his thumb. Like, okay, see Ilya, back to the K you go. No, he's going to come back, and he's going to play well for us. And same with Peter Mrazek. I get he has a history of injuries, but a lot of guys do. Remember Austin Matthews? Injuries were a concern with Austin Matthews. Remember, he had the back injuries, he had the head injuries, the shoulder injuries, the wrist injuries, and he's still with us. So, yeah, durability is a little bit of an issue, but who's to say in 4 weeks he doesn't come back and plays 30 games for us and puts up like a 915? Like, that could fully happen. So, I don't want to write him off just yet. I'll say that.
Get the kinks out now while you can. We knew injury was going to be something to worry about. At least we're getting it out of the way. Hopefully it plays out this way.
Yeah.
Hopefully we're getting them out of the way now, and he's going to be successful down the stretch when we're going to need him most. So I think that's all we're going to say about Peter Mrazek. Jared, I'm going to skip over to you for this because I want to get into this other thing. It's just basically.
Could I interject real quick? I'm sorry, like quick comment.
Yeah, go ahead.
Adamo, it's different for goalies though, because it's the recovery, like in terms of recovery process, it's so much different for goalies. And if you're looking at Mrazek's injuries, it's 100 times different. Like I think he can recover from it, but him getting back into A+ form is going to take at least 2 months for him to
for sure. But that's why Jack Campbell's been like a starting goalie.
You're listing like skaters. It's easier for skaters to get adjusted. It's different for goalies because they're playing the full 60 minutes.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. There we go.
No, it's good. It's a good angle. I think it's I don't know, like this is just from a player's perspective. I played baseball my entire life. Obviously I didn't play as much hockey, so the injuries were a little different, but a groin injury compared to a wrist injury in baseball were leaps and bounds. I would actually say the groin injury was a lot worse, considering you would always retweak it. It's a nagging injury that always comes back and haunts you. I'm sure it was the same for hockey. Every time I play hockey, I pull my groin. It's kind of concerning, but I don't know. Maybe it's the way I skate. My skating is
duster.
Yeah, that's a fair assessment for me, man.
You want to
wait till you see me get on
buds?
Anyways, but no, that like the reason I say this is just to credit Evan's point. There's so many different injuries that work differently for so many players. Personally, baseball wise, it was just the groin injury that always nagged me. Just running every time you at least expect it, there it would come. The wrist injury, you would get it and it would be nipped in the bud for a little bit and then it would open up sometime down the stretch. So hopefully, I know Peter Mrazek's dealing with the groin injury. Hopefully we deal with the kinks right now. And I know we're just about a month into the NHL season. I want to just quickly throw this by you. Hopefully we can get through this one a little bit quick. What's one word you would use to wrap up this Leafs talk we've been on for quite a while now? We've ran pretty long in this Leafs talk, which is never a bad thing, but what's one word you would describe used to describe this Toronto Maple Leafs team, man, I'm butchering this one, through 13, 14 games of the season? Jared, I'll start with you.
Unfortunately, I'm going to use the word inconsistent. I mean, we've had great games and off games. Like we've been a little bit inconsistent. Obviously we had the 5 wins in a row, but we also used those 5 games in a row to follow up 4 losses in a row. So I'd like to see a little bit more consistency down the stretch.
What about you, Adama? Which word are you whipping for the Maple Leaf season so far?
I've been thinking of a bunch of words as Jared was speaking.
Swear words?
One thing, no. These ones I can say in front of kids. Interesting. It's been very interesting. I feel like we don't normally, I feel like last year we kind of just went into the season, we started winning shit and that was it. But this year, there's a million storylines, and that could be the entire NHL, to be honest. I feel like a million things are happening at once, and then we just happen to be intertwined with the Leaf stuff. But I'll go with the word interesting.
And Evan, to wrap it up, what's one word you would use to describe your first season watching the Toronto Maple Leafs in full picture? You're getting the full slice here.
Well, yeah, I mean, I watched them back home, but I would say confusing.
Confusing. It's a fair state. All the statements you guys are making are fair. I mean, so many words, good words and the bad, can mix in with this Maple Leafs team to start the year. If you rewind the tape 2 weeks ago, there's going to be a lot of bad ones there, but slowly starting to even out for this team. We're seeing it from the top 4. The depth, I'm hoping, is going to come pick it up. Mrazek, he's on the shelf. Hopefully when he's back, it's the end of his injuries. And I think that just slightly recaps all we've talked about the Toronto Maple Leafs.